This is a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. You're listening to the tale of three podcasters walking across Scotland during the 30th anniversary of the RAB TGO Challenge. Part 2.
This podcast is just one from a special series produced from a wealth of recordings made in May 2009 during the 30th anniversary of the RAB TGO Challenge. Recording the event were Andy Howell, Shirley Worrell and me, Bob Cartwright. We were just three of the 360 or so challengers who were walking the unsupported 200 miles from the west to the east coast of Scotland. This was the 30th year of the event, sponsored by RAB and, of course, TGO magazine, who have been behind the challenge ever since its inception in 1980. The framework and principle is totally unique. It isn't a race or competition of any kind. The objective is to foster good fellowship amongst walkers within the framework of a challenging 200-mile expedition. This is a backpacking trip, and everyone carries what they need for the duration, picking up the occasional food parcel along the way. The start consists of a series of sign-out locations on the west coast, anywhere from Torrent in the north down to Ardrishaig in the south. Each challenger, solo, couple or group makes their way via a high route, a low route or the mixture of the two across Scotland to finish anywhere between Arbroath and Fraserburgh on the east coast. There's a set 2-week window to do this in, and each participant submits their route for inspection prior to departure for safety and advice reasons. The places are normally limited to 300. However, on this 30th anniversary, this was increased to 360. Details about the future events, entry forms, past stories and photographs can be found in the October issue of TGO magazine. Plus, in recent years, there's an ever-growing online library of podcasts, diaries and blogs from numerous challengers dotted around the web. Each participant makes the challenge as easy or as hard as they wish. The extremes can be a remote high route, carrying everything you need, navigating your way across wild country, taking in the magic vista which only Scotland can offer, and not seeing another soul for days on end. Or a route taking in the many social meeting places, not camping at all, and using established warm, dry accommodation all the way. Most people do a mixture of the two in different forms, depending on the ever-changing conditions an event like this can throw at you. On this 30th anniversary, 3 of us took audio recorders with us to share our experiences, and those of others we met along the way. Rose and I started from Oban, Andy Howell and his partner Kate from Torrent, and for the first time this year, Shirley Worrell was to give us a solo female perspective, also starting from Torrent. We were all aiming for different finish points on the east coast via completely different routes. And so this is our story.
Well, morning 2 of the challenge, and the weather still looks pretty dreadful outside. It's been throwing it down all evening, and this morning it's raining again. A few spots of clear sky over the mountains, but typically the direction we're going in looks pretty bad. There were a whole bunch of us last night at Gerry's Hostel, many of whom hadn't planned to come this way at all, simply driven down by the fact that the weather was so bad everybody had to come through the Chamberlin Pass. But it was a nice evening. It's a very hospitable place, despite Gerry's reputation for eccentricity. Quite comfortable, nice log fires, nice lilting classical music in the background to keep us company. And it was almost a very civilised evening on the challenge. Well, today most people are heading off more or less the same way, and most of us have got the same problem again. We have to find ways of crossing swollen rivers. I think nearly everybody's decided not to go up on the high tops again. But it does look as if the weather's changing slowly. And Gerry at the hostel here told me last night that the weather forecast for the rest of the week is good, so no doubt people will leave again in fine spirits. But I think all of us would recommend Gerry's hostel at Achnarshellac.
It's early at the beginning of day 2, at Gerry's hostel in Achnarshellac, where I spent a pretty excellent evening last night with a big bunch of people. Many of us started at Torrent, other people started at Strathcarron. The weather forecast for yesterday morning was absolutely appalling. They were predicting snow, hail, lightning, 70-mile-an-hour winds. And so we all decided that discretion was the better part of valour, and that instead of going over the high route that we'd intended to take, we'd take a lower, easy route along a road. And so that's what quite a lot of us did in the end. And so we arrived here at Gerry's hostel quite early in the afternoon, I think in fact about 3:45, and we sat around chatting outside. By that stage, the weather had been variable. It had not been anything like as bad as had been predicted. But by that stage, it was absolutely beautiful, and it was hot and sunny, and we sat outside and chatted. And then Gerry came and let us in at probably about 4:30 and distributed us throughout the hostel. We had a marvellous evening last night. You cook your own food here, but there's a nice kitchen where you can easily do that. And a big bunch of us sat around a fantastic fire that Gerry made. Gerry's been here for 43 years, and he tells me that the fire was here before him. So heaven only knows how old the fire is, but it was a marvellous construction. And we had a great time sitting around outside the fire. And I suppose I eventually went to bed at about 11 o'clock and slept very well in a small dormitory, the elite dormitory, I like to think it was, of about 6 or 7 people. And slept quite well. I woke several times during the night, but I was able to get back to sleep, and I woke finally, I think, at about 5:30. And then I drifted, thought about reading, and eventually I got up at about 6:15. Came downstairs, had a cup of hot chocolate, and I'd just been sitting around inside having a chat with people, Laura, Andy, Kate, Doug, and a couple of other people. So anyway, when I first woke up this morning, the weather looked absolutely foul. The cloud was very low, and the rain was coming down, not in steroids, but very steadily. But already, in slightly less than an hour, it's beginning to clear a little, and in fact, there's a bit of a cool breeze. And it looks as though we might even get a little bit of sunshine later on. So anyway, a large bunch of us today are planning to walk across to Loch Monar. Because there's been a lot of rain recently, the river's quite high, and so therefore some route revision went on last night. And we'll have to see how we actually get across the river today. We're hoping that we might be able to sneak across before the river as such actually begins. But anyway, I think there's a lot of people planning to camp down at a place on the north shore of Loch Monar sometime later on this evening. And so I hope that I might be able to make a little bit of recording along the way, but if not, then certainly later on this evening.
Good morning, it's Saturday morning, and we've left Barcaldine campsite sadly in pouring rain once again. It was a very stormy, rainy night, although we were well sheltered from any wind, which was quite good, but just a bit disheartening really to be so wet on day 2, but everybody will be in the same boat, I'm sure, so it's a stiff upper lip and carry on. According to the campsite manager there, he suggested that we continue down a cycle path, which has actually been quite good going, tarmac cycle path down to Coolish, and then we're skirting around the end of the loch to Drummaviac and cutting up over a corrie there. Although we've been warned it's going to be probably a bit boggy over the corrie. We're actually getting to the mountains at last, which is a bit frustrating that it's taken us so long. But it's just stopped raining, which is the reason I've started recording. And the girls have suddenly taken a massive amount of interest in Loch Craren's Marine Special Area of Conservation poster, which is just next to us here. But it's a look.
Interesting. We need to learn these things. Gorgeous.
So describe the surroundings, girls, please, this way. Just describe the surroundings, if you would, to our listeners.
Well, it's a bit of a cloudy start, but the mountains around the edge of the loch have definitely got snow cap on them, which is going to be interesting. And it's fairly misty up there as well, isn't it? Yeah,
the cloud's fairly low. There's 1 or 2 exotic camper vans that have just dotted themselves down this minor road. But a lovely spot.
It is stunning. Stunning. Now that it's stopped torrential rain and you can actually lift your head to see, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's nice. So an hour or so should see us halfway up that track, and perhaps if we're lucky the wind will have blown some of the cloud cover away. We can get some visibility when we're up there. And the theory being we'll drop down to Loch Etive on the other side later on this afternoon.
Actually, I said it stopped raining. It's not actually, it is still raining, but it's just not heavy rain.
You're not moaning, are you?
No.
You've got waterproofs, haven't you?
As Beth said, it wouldn't be called a challenge for nothing.
Exactly, and my waterproof is intact after the singeing.
Oh, right, so it's all my fault.
I guess I can just about manage.
We'll battle on, as families do.
It's about 10:30 on the morning of the second day, and just had a very exciting experience getting across the River Meg, where the water's quite high, and we're at some kind of interesting wire bridge. It's 2 wires, a very broad one at the top and a skinny one underneath. And as we arrived, we saw Mr. Grumpy leaping up and down next to the bridge, and that was very exciting because it's a couple of years since I've seen him. So anyway, we dashed over and said hello, and he showed us how to do it, how to get across this thing. And basically you stand on the bottom wire, keeping it in the instep of your shoe or boot, and you lean forward, gripping the top wire with your hands, but basically keeping your weight forward all the time. And so anyway, I decided to have a go, and I managed to get across, which was hugely exciting. Anyway, the others decided that it looked all a little bit dodgy, so they made their way up the river to see if they could get across a bit further along, just walking through the water. But it looks as though they weren't able to do that, because Caburn has just come back, and he's now halfway across the bridge. And Andy and Kate are making their way along, they're staying on the other side of the river, and they met up with another person. I'm not sure who that is. Caburn will no doubt explain when he gets across. And Grumpy's been taking photos, and he's packing his stuff up. I can see a couple of people coming along behind us. We've had variable weather. It started off from having woken to really revolting rain and low cloud. It then brightened up and became lovely, and then there was really quite a heavy squall. When we started the walk, it was warm and sunny again, and then we had a heavy squall that lasted about half an hour. So anyway, having just had another dry bit, it seems as though it's coming on to rain again. So I'm going to put this away for now. Caburn will be over in a moment, and then we intend to strike up the side of the hill and do at least one Munro before dropping down to Loch Monar later in the afternoon. And if we're lucky and the weather's good enough, then we might be able to get a couple of Munros in, which would be very exciting, because my tally of Munros is still pretty small. OK, so that's it for now. No doubt I'll be in touch later on, and I hope that everybody else is having a good day wherever they're walking.
Well, it's just about 2:30 on day 2, and we're sitting alongside a lovely little stream feeding into a high lochen before we descend down to Loch Monar, and it's pretty good weather now, but early on, Kate, it wasn't.
No, we've had a bit of a mixed day, and as we were on the higher ground about an hour ago, the rain actually started falling as snow, and the winds were, while not exactly high, they were certainly cold, and it was a sort of slightly miserable 20 minutes, but it's cheered up now, and it's, I think the sun's coming out.
A whole little group of us left Gerry's hostel more or less at the same time, and Shirley decided to go up the high-level route that we were intending to go by, and we decided to come over the low-level route, and we've been walking with Doug here, and it's been pretty ropey, hasn't it, in parts?
It's very rough going up the glen, and then faced with a torrent to get across. That was really tricky. We walked and walked for ages before we could find somewhere to cross, and I managed to leap from rock to rock and get across, so that was quite a relief, because there was waterfalls and everything, so that was a bit rough, but it was very boggy and water pouring from everywhere, so tough going, especially in the rain and the snow, but it's lovely here.
Lots of lovely wild camp spots. In fact, we can look up and see the ridge walk that Shirley's going to be coming down. I don't know about you, but I think I prefer to be here than up there.
Yes, I definitely do. I was, yes, I wasn't terribly tempted. I had a moment when I thought it might be nice, but I kind of realised it was going to get cold.
Well, As ever, you stop, the wind's picking up a bit. We're heading down to Loch Monar. We're all headed for the same camp spot, about 20 of us. So there's a certain incentive for us to get there reasonably early, I think.
It might only be big enough for one tent, so there'll be a race for it.
We'll toss you for it, Doug. Anyway, this is what it's all about, and after the frustrations of yesterday, we're into the high wild hills, and it's as spectacular as ever.
It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon of the second day, and I'm sitting in a very snowy, cold place with Caburn. Hello, Caburn.
Hello.
And Caburn and I, as we both stayed. I stayed at Gerry's hostel last night, and Caburn walked into Gerry's hostel and stayed for a while, and then he went and camped. Where did you camp?
Just follow the track down to the river. There's a nice little forest with a lovely moss carpet.
Oh, it sounds beautiful.
It's very comfortable.
And what kind of a night did you have?
Very good.
Excellent.
Yeah, it rained a bit, but it's fine.
Okay, so, well, today a bunch of us decided, because the weather forecast has not been awfully good, and because when we woke up the weather looked pretty awful, we thought that it might be a wise move to take a lower route today, as indeed we did yesterday. But I kind of like the idea of getting up onto the tops if possible, and Caburn did that yesterday as well. And so, Caburn, can you just talk us through the route that you and I have actually taken?
We went over that bridge, in quotes.
Okay, well, we got to the bridge.
Pollenbuid.
And that was the interesting bridge made out of two wires, wasn't it?
Yes, and we were the only people brave enough to go across it.
Yes.
Well, you went across first, and because you'd done it, I couldn't really wimp out.
Well, the others then set off to take the lower route.
To the lower route,
and so you and I have done what then?
We've gone up to the Bulak Bernays, just to trudge up the valley there. And then, at the moment, we're perched between Sgur Koinik and Sgur Koryakane.
Okay, and is Sgur Koinik the one that we've just been up?
We've just been that one, but didn't particularly notice the top.
No, we didn't notice it. I mean, because the weather's been, well, like yesterday, it's very variable, isn't it? Because it seems to close in and it's quite revolting for about an hour or so. And then it lifts and all of a sudden the sunshine, the rain stops and it's beautiful. And just at the moment, I'm touching wood, but at the moment that's what's happening. And so there have been parts of today that have been really lovely, and then
parts where the hail is going horizontal.
Yeah, well, it was so painful. It was actually necessary to try to protect
right on the side of your face.
Yes, really very sore. So I mean, we had that mixed weather, didn't we, going up that first Munro? But it looks as though we might have better wetter until we get
calm for a moment.
Some of the way up the second
top's
one.
Still shrouded in cloud.
Yeah, the top's disappeared.
Not thick cloud, and the cloud level is actually about 1,000 metres.
Yes,
really. Just covering the tops.
And the loch itself has appeared now and looks very beautiful. And so it sounds as though there's a plan for quite a lot of people to camp down on the north shore, I think, of Loch Monar this evening. So we certainly hope to see Andy and Kate, and Doug, I think, will be there. It could be that John Manning will be there, and Laura as well, and possibly other people. I think Colin has gone off in a more northerly sort of direction now. But how long do you think, if things go according to plan, how long do you think it might take us now if we go?
It'll still be a few hours.
A few hours, okay. And there's a possibility, if there's...
About 3 or 4 hours, probably.
3 or 4 hours, okay. And if there's dramatic change for the better in the weather, there's just an outside possibility that we might try a third Munro.
One more Munro.
And which one's that?
You pronounce it, I can't.
Oh gosh, well I can't even attempt to. It's spelt Maoile. Lunndadh or something. Lundike?
Moyle Lundike.
Something like this, anyway.
1007.
So,
it means a bit of a drop down, then back up again.
Yes, but we're probably not going to do that, are we?
Yeah, distance-wise, no more. In fact, slightly less.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
suppose we should think about doing that one then.
Yeah, only if it looks good.
Okay, all right. Well, so we get to the top of the second one, and we'll have another think. All right, well, that's that for now. So Cabe and I are going to set off. We just had a little lunch break. I had some bread and some saucisson and some garlic to keep away the ticks, and just about everybody else. And Cabe had...
my good old-fashioned cheese and pickle sandwiches.
Yes, all right then. So, well, goodbye for now. We'll put together something else, another brief update this evening. And in the meantime, we hope that you're all having fun wherever you are.
Saturday evening looms at 7:30, and it is, I have to say, the end of a very long and exhausting day. and as Beth said today, you can see why they called it a challenge. The long and the short of it was we left Barcaldine campsite later than we would like to have done, but we took advice that the best route over the top wasn't the one that I'd originally put on our map, our route course. So we continued to head north and then started to skirt round to the east at Dallacoolish, along the loch side there, before turning inland at Drumavik and starting a very, very long climb up to the Corrie Buddy. Just as we hit the Col there, a storm, well, I say a storm, it was snow and a bit of cloud and zero visibility hit us just as we hit the top, just before we got there, so we were lost our visibility and direction for a while. Thankfully it blew over fairly quickly, and we managed to head the 5 or 6k down to the track by Loch Etive. Now that took us a ridiculous amount of time. I think from leaving the road to getting down to the roadside that went down to the loch was 2.5-3 hours, and we were fairly exhausted because of the type of terrain that we were going through. Anyway, we have made it along the side of Loch Etive, but nowhere near where we should be or where our plan was. And we've been agonising today why everything has gone wrong. And it's just sort of assumptions and weather, I suppose. We assumed we'd make better headway over certain terrain. We chose the Loch View route as opposed to our proposed route, neither of which was probably better than the other, to be honest. The first day meeting Richard was good because we stopped for an hour to have a rest, but today we started at 9, as I say, we've just finished now, just got a brew on at 7, and we've had 10 minutes, and to be fair, we are all thoroughly exhausted. But our plan today was to have been well at the end of Glen Etive and over the next climb. So a little bit of reorganisation of the route map needs to be done. But as Beth was saying, you can see why they call it a challenge, because we have literally had all the weather conditions today in one go. We've had obviously rain, wind, snow, sleet, ice, and it has just been a continual changing and quite exhausting in the process. I'd say you get the girls involved, but I think they're rather tired and they really are looking forward to some food. So we're heating up the food and getting them sorted, and going to have an early night, then an early start, and then work out what we can do to try and catch the missing day. We've just seen a couple of other challenges. I didn't catch their names, sadly. Just further down the glen, and they caught the ferry across. So they're obviously one of the ferry group that have come across from one of the islands there. So no doubt we'll be bumping into a few more of those as a few days unfold, as it were. Okay, so that pretty well wraps this one up. You should probably tell from the tone of voice, very, very tired. The weather is, there's a few bits of blue in the sky. It's still bitter cold. I must admit, it wasn't as cold as this last time I did it. So the opportunities to sit and have a brew and sort of regain a certain level of enthusiasm just hasn't existed. It's head down, keep going, keep going, keep going. And as they say, that's why they call it the challenge. So we're going to get our head down now. We're, as you can hear, by the riverside. We've found a lovely spot which is just tucked out the way at the trees, just off the road. And all being well, we'll be away first thing tomorrow morning, and we'll fill you in then.
Well, it's the end of day 2, and as you can hear, the rain is absolutely tipping it down yet again. Most of the day we spend splashing through peat bogs, and no doubt it looks as if we're going to be spending a fair amount of tomorrow doing exactly the same thing. Tomorrow is the day when we leave the northwest behind us, really, and we walk down Lake Mulladock and then cut over some smaller hills inland to Cannock. I must say, on the challenge, it's the northwest that really, really impresses me the most. And this year, I guess mainly because of day 1 and the weather, we haven't quite had the big wide open vistas that we normally do. So hopefully this will blow over in the night. The weather forecast is improving, and maybe we can get up a bit higher tomorrow and get one last long feel for those big wide open spaces of the northwest.
Well, good evening. It's 10 to 9 on the evening of day 2, and I'm finally sitting in my tent. I still have wet feet because I haven't taken my wet socks off yet, but my tent is up, I'm dry. I've made a couple of cuppa soups and I'm halfway through those, and when I finish those I'm going to be having macaroni cheese, and for the first time in quite some hours I'm actually able to relax. So this has turned into quite a gruelling day, in fact. I left the hostel at Craig with some other people at approximately, I think, 8:45 this morning, and it wasn't until 8:15 this evening that I was actually in a position to start putting up the tent. I mentioned earlier on today that Caburn and I decided that despite the bad weather we were going to see if we could get over a couple of Munros, and we did that, but it was really quite a challenging kind of day. Just looking at the map, what we did was we left the hostel at Craig, and then we crossed the river Meg via a very precarious sort of bridge, and then having done that we walked up a path to the Bernays, and then we went over Sker Konig, and then we went over Sker Korakane. I'm just terrible at attempting to pronounce these things, unfortunately. And from there we went on to Bidian and Oindaig, and then it was our intention to follow the ridge down, a very attractive ridge, down to the side of Loch Mona and walk along to a point at which a number of people had agreed to camp tonight, as long as they were able to get there. But in fact we accidentally came down a little bit too early, and so therefore we missed out the really nice ridge walk down, and we found ourselves undertaking quite a lengthy walk along the side of the loch, which was quite difficult because there wasn't any path at all for the first couple of miles, and we tried walking along the shore. Now, of course, that was very bouldery. And then we tried walking in the grass, and that wasn't a lot easier, but we did eventually find a path, and we did eventually make our way here. There aren't a lot of other people here at the moment. Andy and Kate are in the tent next door. And Bruce, that's Bruce Cockburn, his tent is on the other side of the river, and so we said a brief hello to all of those. And as I say, it's a relief actually finally to be able to sit down and relax and get something to eat. The weather today's been really very variable. There have been points at which it was absolutely beautiful, and I got some fantastic photographs of the loch and mountains in the background with a sprinkling of snow and bright golden sunshine, and so I'm very much looking forward to those when I having a look at those when I get home. But for, I would have said 50% of the rest of the time it was really quite severe weather. There were several times when we were sopping wet, but happily each of those periods seemed to be followed by a dry and slightly windy and sunny period, and so by the time we got here I think we happened to be in one of the dry periods. So most of my clothing's not too bad. My feet have been soaking wet since, I don't know, about 11:30 this morning, so at some stage I'll have to take off my socks and get into my nice down booties. Anyway, well, that's that for now. It's my intention to have quite a long day tomorrow. I'll talk in the morning, I think, about what my long-term plan is for the challenge this year, but suffice it to say that at the moment, in order to get to the Cairngorms in time to try to carry out an exciting undertaking, I have to press on tomorrow, and I'm hoping to get almost as far as Drumnadrochid, so I'll have a proper look at the map in the tent later this evening, and have a bit of an update in the morning when I've made my mind up about precisely how I'm going to try and go about that. Okay, so well, there we go, that's that from me. I'll finish my soup and then I'll put on my macaroni cheese, while it sits in the pot with the pot cosy. I'll get into my warm dry clothing, and hopefully half an hour from now I'll be settling down with my new book, Isolation Shepherd.
Join us next time as the journey across Scotland continues on the 30th Anniversary TGO Challenge 2009. Find out how easy it is to subscribe to all our free programmes. Visit our website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk or look us up on Facebook.